Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one. Back with another one. Hold on for a minute. Hold on for a minute. Okay, let me check something real quick. I'll be right back. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 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 okay. Woo. My interface be in and out sometimes, but it's just like, okay, good, good. I had to pop it in, because this little software be fucking with it. Sorry about that. But yeah, this is Sumer part 4 and 5. Yeah, we got a little seconds off, but that's okay. That's okay. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. I'm gonna see it ain't really much, but it's short on number 4. Okay, we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna share the screen Sumer, and I know it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. I gotta see what's going on. It's craziness right here. Ain't got time for that. All right. So the Gudea or the Gutians, we're gonna talk about them in part 4. And I'm gonna pick up the screen and keep me from y'all seeing me right here. This is the main topic we're talking about. So part 3, we talked about the ziggurats and all this stuff. We talked about, okay, what are we talking about in part 3? Okay, because part 1, we talked about the introduction of Sumer, right? Number 2, we talked about the Sumerian cities, and we talked about like the previous recordings that y'all saw, right? See, part 2, we talked about all that, the ziggurats and the Sumerian prehistory. We talk about all that, right? But in number 3, what did we talk about last week? Last week we talked about the the Urkagina people in modern day Iraq or Iraq, or how people want to pronounce it, or the royal queen Puabi and the Arcadians. We talked about them in the third, and I showed you some pictures of that, right? So, quite frankly, we are going to talk about the Gudayas and the Gutans. This is part of the history of Sumer. Sumer has a long, unique history of different cultures, different backgrounds. Like we say on all the way through part 1 and 3, we explain that ziggurats. Y'all can go look at those if y'all miss it. If y'all new to the channel, that's cool. Uh, I don't care if you subscribe or not. Don't matter. I'm not looking for views. I'm just putting my content out like daily, doing these for a year, and then I'm gonna talk about something else. Shout out to Real History www.com. Talks about ancient history, dark history, you name it, whatever history there is, and he does research. We do research and we back up what we say in certain sources. That's it. So we're talking about Sumer 4. Now, I had a lot of people that dislike the Thailand, Cambodia. I appreciate y'all's interactions. I appreciate y'all, but you got a lot of haters out there. I dealt with that years ago. If they was around when I was in my debate forum in my 20s and learning about myself, they should have catch me when this channel was made. I'm not gonna go back and forth with somebody that makes those long ass comments. Now you can make a long, nice comment, whatever, but people say, "What happened to this comment?" I don't know what happened. I ain't got time to go back and forth with people on the thread. I'm sorry, I don't do that. I used to in the day when I debate people. Some of you guys got short attention spans. I understand y'all come from TikTok. I don't rock with y'all like that. I stay on YouTube just to do certain content. That's it. Other places I do things different. I'm just gonna leave it at that. We're gonna stick to the topic. Oh, Sumer 4 and Gudea and Gutens. Okay. Now in Sumer, the Gutens have invaded are in charge. But meanwhile, the neighboring city state of Lagash was somehow unaffected by the Gutium enjoyed the century of the complete independence of Insi and Lagash was Gudea. Gudea was energetic and benevolent ruler who had at the time the power and wealth to carry out the extensive program of the temple construction and other public works or projects. But it seems to have been regarded as a great king, and there was many songs written by him, and also many statues erect from him. But this is this is an excerpt of a hymn written for him on the occasion of the building of the goddess of Ningushru temple. Indicates missing parts. And they said Gudea rose in a sleep slumber. It was a dream. Accepting Gushu's words, he went to perform the ecstasy as on a white kid. But he performed on the kid on his own, and it was as favorable near Gishru, intentions becoming a clear and day to Gudea. He is wise and able to realize that the ruler have gave instructions to the city of one man and land of Lagash, as it became one in an accord, one accord for him, and like the children of one matter. He one matter. Children of one, I mean, excuse me, children of one mother. He opened the manacles. Yeah, the manacles of removed fetters and established to reject legal complaints and locked up those guilty of the capital offenses instead of executing them. He invented the I think Gudea is the one that invented the long life in prison. He's the one that invented life in prison in their culture. So a lot of the culture you see in America they got it from Samaria as well. The lifelong in prison. He's a good example of that. You see this. It's a popular satire by Samaria, and you see this a lot in culture. Americans and other cultures adopted this as well, especially Russia. You name it. All these cultures have adopted that. He is undid his tongues of the good thing that the whip replaced them with the wood from the lamb bearing the sheep. No no mother shouted the child answered in the mother's back. No slave who was hit on the head hit on the head by his master, but no misbehaving. No misbehaving slave girl was slapped on the face by the mistress, but nobody could make the ruler build the Inu, the Inu Gudea fell, and then the chance of the utterance of the ruler, but it cleaned the city, but let purify for the fire loose over it, but it expelled it the purpose of the ritually unclean, unpleasant, took look at, and from the city. But this is the citizens was purified, an area of 24 iku for him, but they were cleansing, but that the area were for him. But he put a jumper he put a juniper mountains pure plant onto the first and realized excuse me, raised smoke with cedar risen and secret of the gods, and for him to the day portraying. Day was for praying for for the night passed for him to the supplications, but in order to build the house of the Nigishru and the Anu gods in the land of Lagash stood by Gudea in prayer and in the supplication, and all of this is made through Shepherd Gudea, extremely happy. So here's what you got. A missing head, no problem. Make him white. As a typical albino, people have no trouble assigning European albino features to ancient black artifacts. This is Gudea that he's showing you the ritual of this guy right here. It's like a priest or whatever, a ruler. And this is Samaria. You actually seen this on my page, on my pre-records. I think y'all seen this on my page. So I'm just going to languish up real quick, but you actually seen this on my page. If y'all new to this channel, if y'all want to see some more, you can see my old stuff on my old videos. Just look at my oldest, you'll find this statue right here on the tail end of the year of 2014. I talked about this years ago, and I talked about this 9 years ago. 9 years ago, I had this picture on an old computer, and you'll see. I was talking about the Sumerians at that part. I had some interesting parts. I've been talking about them the longest for like 9 years for this website. So, it's pretty much, and then you see this right here, the circuit of 2,200 BCE, but the rock relief debris of Gaviar or something like that in the mountains of Sumer, like Sumer in Iraq, I mean, a tribute to Nara Sheen by the Gutum. Okay. So it talks about what you see right here in the blue parentheses. I'm not going to read that, but yeah, it says like the 2141 BCE to 2138 BCE. It's just a little brief. And he says reign ruled for the royal inscription of Nippar. And he called himself the king of Guti. But the king of the four quarters and his instructions indicated that they are Akkadian. We talked about that last week. Empire fell into the Gutians and the Lullabies and rebelled against the I'll say the Arazafi people, like something like that, or Susa. And then it talks about them and the rest. It talks about the kingdom rule of Nippar. And yes, we talked about Akkadians, and you see this picture right here, and that's how you have it. Now the third dynasty of King Namu. King Namu. Now you've seen this before, the real versus fake. I talked about this years ago as well, and then I have this as well. And it says the King Namu in inscriptions reads, I'll say inscription reads of the Arcadia and all this stuff. I talk about the Arcadian principles. I talk about there's no such thing as Hyksos, and it's a long story how I got that. Shouts to this same website. After several generations, Sumerians threw off the Gutian yoke, and when the Uti Hagi, 2133 BCE, but came to the throne, Uti Hagil succeeded at driving out the Gutians, and when he defeated the Gutian king Trigigon in 2130 BCE. But Uti Higal victories revived to the political of the economic life of Sumer. But it was the time that the Sumerian king list was inscribed. But upon his death, Uti Higal, one of Ur-Nammu, declared the king himself. Ur-Nammu seized Urk, but attacked to kill his competitor. But Nami Lagash, who and he called the traitor of Lagash. But Ur-Nammu eventually ruled at Sumer, and a much Assyria, Elam. He said Assyria and Elam in Syria and Ebla paid tribute, but mainly paid well as part of the empire of the Evan Biblios in Canaan, which is known as modern day, they will say Israel, but I ain't gonna get into that. Or the Holy Land, we would say, was forced to pay, was forced to pay. But this was the beginning of the third dynasty, right? Because of the Sumerian king list, this is the third time that has the kingship was taken by Ur. Ur-Nammu caused the coveted overseas trade from the Dalamum and Indos Valley. That's what it said. We talked about Indos Valley earlier this year as a pre-record and revised the history of that. Megan and Mula. Mula means black land, the name of Egypt, as some probability the country that they are referring to is Egypt, but the noun that flew through bringing great wealth to that city. But like all the great rulers, he built much, including that the very impressive ziggurats. We talked about the ziggurats last week, and of and Uruk, which implied to the monumental dimensions of his reign. And he took the new king and Sumer and then Akkad and remained of his ruler. But he was relatively peaceful, but set about the settings and his issues as well, embarking on rebuilding projects. But to fix the devastation caused by the Gutians, it was also the social reform. It was originated in all of the law code that earliest known in law code, but it produces that the Babylonian king of Hammurabi by the 3 centuries below to the except from the hymn writing in the occasion of his death and his misery. So we're going to, I got to see for it real quick. Okay, we're going to do this. Got to make sure it's not um crazy on here because, shouts out to the dude. It's law codes. Okay. Okay. We're good. We're good. Okay. I'm going to, yeah, we're going to big this up right quick. Okay. So basically, this is his law codes. If a man commits a murder, that man must be killed. If a man commits robbery, he will be killed. That's number two. Number three, commits kidnapping, blah, blah, blah. This is codes. I'm going to put this in the capitals. We're going to talk about the law codes some other time, and we're going to put that in there. And then we talked about that, and we're going to come back to this in the future. I'll do a live stream on this and about Sumer if y'all have questions on part four. And then we talked about it, and we're going to just go intactful with it. So I'm not surprised that this stuff is happening. We'll talk about part five, and then how much time we got? How much time we got? Okay, we got plenty of time because this is a short one. This ain't a really a long one. So yeah, and this is the head, and it's a real and the fake, and he tries to show you what's the difference between the two. Okay, King Sugali, Shugali, King Shugali, after the Namun died, his son Shugali ascended to the throne. By now, the Gutians have overflown Elam, causing a great state and anarchy there. But they have a previously caused in Suma Shugali wed his daughters to the rulers of the Washi and Anshan, Elamite cities, and then it invaded and occupied Susa. But the main the main Elamite city has also installed the Sumerian governor. But there's Shugali, I mean, Shugali, and consider himself something of a poet. Shugali, 2100 BCE, on the future of the Sumerian literature. Now I swear that by the sun and Uti on this very day, and my younger brothers shall be the witness of the foreign lands, and whether the sons of the Sumer are not known. But when people do not have use of paved roads where they have no access to, nor I swear that the sons on Uti. Oh, sorry. Excuse me, I misread that. I keep doing this shit all the time. Okay, younger brother. Okay, access to the written word. Okay, excuse me. But that the firstborn son as the fashioner of the words, but the composer of the songs and the composer of the words that they have recited. Yeah, excuse me for that. Recited of the words of the composer. Okay, fashioner of the words, composer of the songs, words that they will recite in my songs as heavenly writtens, and they will blow down before my words. But he later put down the Elamite revolt in Yashin. But after the Elamites were recruited into the Sumerian army, willingly or unwillingly, he had led an army into Canaan, which is now known as the Holy Land. They would say, but another name. But I just said earlier, y'all take a guess. But we know that land futurely is going to be called Melchizedek. That's the covenant of that. But that's a whole nother story on that. In Scripture. But back to it. But to the punish of the locals, they are not attending to his tribute, but he may have emulated Narum Sin, an early king, for his took for the title, but the king of the four quarters, and had himself defiled and declared a god. But praise poem of Shugali's translation. He said, the king amongst Taurus drives powers. Arcadia marveled, the mirror, saw this blue stuff. But it's basically saying, I ain't gonna read the rest. I'm just gonna skim through it because that's a lot of read because we ain't got much time. But so basically, I'm saying he talks about Arcadia, but he talks about other things that the rulerships. Like I've talked about this before. I'm not gonna get into it, but yeah, Sugali, his son, right here. Then the water buffalo, 2334 BCE. That's what you see, and then you see the people right there. Samaria has an interesting culture. It's a good culture, and then you got the Amorites. Yeah, the Amorites right here. So we're gonna go to there. So the blue writing is a lot of read, but I'm not gonna take too much y'all's time on that because we gotta get to number five. Number four is like brief. Let's talk about the war and destruction of the cities, a little anarchy, a little divide, a little splinter groups and things like that. So the Amorites. I'll say the part where the letter to Araju, Applica, and all this other stuff assembled. but their very interesting letter sums up the situation with King Sugali and pretty well. That's what this blue lettering is. I'm not going to read that. I'm skipping this so we can go to number 5. So it's not a lot. It's just like lettering right into what he said about him, what the rulership, whatever. It's a nice read, but it is what it is. So the Amorites, you know the history of them a little bit. I talked about them previously on live streams. I talked about on pre-records as much. Okay, Sumerian Akkadian inscriptions later part of the 3rd millennium BCE were referred to the people called Mara to Sumerian or Amaru Akkadian, later called Amorite. These seem to have been the nomadic desert people who moved systematically in from the west. Their homeland was northwest of Sumer in the area stretching from the west bank of the Euphrates River on westward, along with the northern fringe of the Syrian desert. Mhm. And the Sumerians called this land Tidonum. Yeah, Tidonum. From the early part of the 2nd millennium BCE onward, these people became more aggressive. These Amorites were already well known to the Sumerians, well known to the Sumerians. They described them as people who know not to grain, people who do not know to grain and do not live in houses. Exactly. They're like nomadic. They're in the field a lot, in the desert dwellers, kind of like bandits and stuff like that. They said not to grain and live in houses. But these Amorite people will come to have a great impact in the Mesopotamia. They have a great impact to the Mesopotamia and in Egypt, where they have become known as the Habaru or Hebrew. They said Habaru or Hebrew. They would say Hebrew. Now back to our history. Now back to our history. That's what he said. By the time of the Sugali and the Amorites have become uh, have become ever or more aggressive until finally there was an open warfare on the constant raids. But the situation prompted Sugalis to send his envoy to Aradu and out into the country to visit his cities and ensure that the defenses and loyalty of his governors. But however, Arju and this particular high official, Apalika, did not get along. But in previous letters, Shugali and Adril has complained that Apalika has not made him welcome, has been disrespectful of him. This is Shugali's letter of reply. And that's his letter of reply. Sugali, I said we're going to read this, but Lord says this and this is basically saying the same thing. So it sums up his story. So yeah, this is the Amorite piece of it with Sugali and all this other that of the talk about the and it talks about the Gudea, and then known as Gutians. This is Sumeria of this part of part 4. Okay. So basically what I'm saying, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm just going to get to number 5 real quick, and we're going to talk about the Amorite invasion. We're going to talk about that extension. So basically we're talking about the Amorite invasion on part 4, the Gutans and the Amorite invasion. We're going to talk about that as well in Sumer. That's what we're talking about. That's the 2 parts that we are going to talk about as well. So the Amorite invasion, so it's pretty much the same, like we see what's going on and other stuff, and that's just how it is. So I'm gonna get to right quick. Let's see, Sumer again, and 23 minutes. Okay, 24 minutes, 23. Okay, we're on the threshold mark. So we're gonna do. Let's try it right here. Okay, what we got is short. Okay, it's very short. We're gonna do this. Okay, the Amorite invasion. It's part 5, Sumer 5, Amorite invasion. Okay, after Sugali died, his son Shushin, 2038 BCE, became the king. He also had himself defiled more. More wars were fought with the Amorites. Shushin lost Assyria, erected a huge between the Tigris and the Euphrates River, but just north of the Babylea to help to keep out the Amorites. The wall was 170 miles long, breached the banks of both rivers. But he also campaigned the Zigros Mountains, and defeated the coalition of the local tribes. But he had extensive trade relations with the Indus Valley. Indus Valley at the time was something until it failed, and elsewhere. But later he had to build the addition walls around the cities of and Nippur, but to protect against the Amorites. It was later during the reign of Ibbi-Sin, the fifth ruler of third's dynasty, right? But that the raiders from the Mardu tribe, Amorites, finally they were raiders, kind of like terrorists that raid people's houses and destroy. They were destructive. That's what the Amorites come from. Finally broke through the walls, but this resulted into a widespread panic and a general breakdown into communications throughout the empire. Even before that, Ibbi Sin's situation was insecure, was a pathetic at times throughout the much of his reign, was the Amorite attack, but that realm began to began to disintegrate amongst the immediately much more to the time Ibbi Sin have left it confined to his capital city of Elamite city of Ishia Ashuna broke away in 2028 BCE, or 2028 BCE. But the rest of the Elamite next year, the NC of the most of the cities of the desert him, fended themselves against the Amorites, who were ravaged in Sumer. But seeing this, the one of the Ebiasins and the generals of Ishian era rebelled and was given the ruler over the cities of Ishian. The attempts to place him. But the Sumerian god, the bull, with the man's head, 2500 BCE. That's how it goes. Elamite invasion. These Clamamites are the prompted Elamite, which had earlier has been invaded by Ibbi-Sin, so resumed hostilities. Came under attack from both Elam and the Mardur Amorites. Was besieged, taken, was early destroyed by the invading Elamites and their allies. Among the Iranians, Iranian tribes. It was not known as what part of the Madro Northwest played in the final battle, but the king Ibbi-Sin, but Lev was the captive of Mormors and herd of Sumer, and then the songs of hymns and received moving in fashion, unhappy in the end of But the sample below is taken from the mid part of the hymn. It says the Lament of translations, of course. That's what it talks about right here. We're gonna skim through that because we're not gonna read that. We're pretty much out of time because we talked about part 4 and things like that. And then there's the priest guiding the sacrifice bull, like as you said, main in the painting, as you see right here. And then you got this statue of this Amorite person or whatever, and it says the Vol statue. So at the same time, it's probably the result of the disorder caused by the Elamite invasion. Napoleon or Amorite became the king of the city of Lashra and the contemporary Ishiabia era of Ishin. Napoleon was able to establish the dynasty of Lashra and was succeeded by the line of 13 Amorite kings, many of them whom exercised great authority in Sumer. By now, the Amorites have become somewhat sedentary. Hammurabi, things goes over with the war wars is fought, but then the previous unimportant Amorite of the city of Babylia, later called Babylon, known as modern day Babylon back in the day, ancient Babylon, right? In the northern of the Sumer, and one Hammurabi became king when Hammurabi succeeded his father, but Sin Mafabiliat as king of Babylon in 1792 BCE, but he was still young. But was a customary in Mesopotamian royal courts of the time. He probably already has been entrusted with some officials in the administration of the city. So he became the king. He already grounded in the next 29 years building and construction, etc., etc. So it's a little long read, but I'm skimming through. Yeah, I read this before. It talks about his rulership. It talks about his independence and all that stuff. That's basically it. I'm not gonna read that. I might do a stream talk about that, go back and forth with that, and read it as well. It's a pretty good, damn long read. But at some point in time, the Syrians rebelled against their independence. Yeah, it talks about that. And this is Samuel Jackson. They use him as a story of a movie. But shouts to this person put this picture: modern black man with a Persian type hairstyle of the black man, with the beard and all that. This is like from a movie they got from a scene, what he was wearing at the time. He don't look like that. He's bald headed. We already know that. And that's what they look like. And then there's the statue of the city of Amorite gods, Hammurabi, 1792 to 1750. That's what they look like. And the blue lettering and all that. We ain't gonna read all the blue lettering. So that's it for part 5, 4 and 5, by the way. So what y'all think? It's pretty much the same as we see that this is part of it. It's a little long, but as before, I had to put 2 together. So the next one's gonna be a little shorter because it ain't gonna be like a little long read and things like that. But I had to get Sumer out of the way. So this is part 4 and 5. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And yeah, I talk about this a lot, and we'll talk about 6 the next week, whatever, and things like that nature. And we'll see what's going on right there. And it's just like, you know, it's a lot going on right now. And it's just what it is. And we're going to we're just gonna see what's up. I'm just gonna turn this off. Like, this phone is distracting with the notifications. It keeps clicking while I was talking and things like that. So don't mind that. That's just a bunch of notifications I have. I have too much shit going on. Okay, so with that, shalom to the people of Israel and the Gentiles as always. Shalom to you if you get this knowledge, whatever. And yes, we're talking about Sumer part 6 next week, but this week 4 and 5, yes, I did it on my own merit, and that's it. So with that, sign off, and I'm out.